All right. Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. I am your host, Valerie D. Johnson, and I'm excited that you have joined us. Thank you all for coming out tonight, taking a part of your day. And I know that you are going to be truly inspired and I hope encouraged to do something different as a result of spending time here today. Again, my name is Valerie Johnson. I am your host, and tonight we are going to be informed, educated, inspired, empowered by none other than attorney at law Gail L. Polk Payton. Thank you so much for coming tonight. I'm so excited that you are here. I'm not going to get into your bio. I'm going to let you tell us a little bit more about yourself. But I will say that she is my USM sister. Go Eagles!
That's right. Southern Miss to the top.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. You have quite the list of accomplishments. I don't know what it is about my guest. Although they are coming on for one reason, in this case, she's going to be talking about estate planning, but she's also a singer. So last week, last show, we had Tony McFarlane on, and he is a musician also. So I don't know what that means. But anyway, I love it. I love it. I love it. Again, welcome to the show. Please
Thank
take
you.
a moment to tell us who you are.
Okay, my name is Gay Polk Payton. I'm from Hattiesburg, Mississippi, born and raised. I went to undergrad at USM. I graduated from Hattiesburg High School, and then I went to undergrad at the University of South Mississippi. And I went and got my master's degree at the University of New Orleans in business, and then I went to law school at Ole Miss. Came back to Hattiesburg, started practicing law, and I've been practicing law for 27 years. Been a judge now for 13 years, elected to the county for Forest County, and appointed for 5 years with the city of Hattiesburg. I have one son. His name is Gabriel. He's 26 years old. He's a Jackson State alum. He's a member of Kappa Alpha Psi. I'm a Delta Sigma Theta member. And so we love that crimson and cream. Um, and so I don't know. What else do you want to know about me? It's a lot to tell, but I don't like talking about myself that much.
So how about tell us about your you have a book out?
Yes, I do. My book is called This Has Been a Public Service Announcement. And public service announcements are information that is disseminated for the greater good of society. So my book says, I'm not passing judgment. I'm just saying this has been a public service announcement. And so it's divided into 7 categories based on a concept that I learned in law school called res ipsa loquitur. Res ipsa loquitur means the thing speaks for itself. And in my hood, that means it is what it is. So I divided into 7 categories: general relationships for men, for women, single parenting, fitness, and religion. And I talk about those 7 categories from my perspective based on things that I have observed people do. It's not like telling people what to do. It's kind of like when your mama used to say, get out from there, you're going to break your neck. It's kind of like cautionary tales. Don't do that because you're going to break your neck. And so it's like this book, $15 or $20, but it can save you legal fees, $20,000, and I know how much it costs because that's how much I charge. So
Yes, yes, good,
yeah.
good, good, good.
Mm-hmm.
That is absolutely awesome. That is much needed because I
Yeah,
found that many times, especially in our community, sometimes we just don't have the information,
that's
which is
right.
why I decided to write a book, which is why I decided to do the show. So this
Right.
is perfect, and I want to encourage
Perfect.
people to go out and purchase her book so that you can have some knowledge that you probably would pay thousands of dollars to get.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Exactly.
again, thank you
Exactly.
so much. I'm excited about this conversation. I
Me
think it's a
too.
much needed conversation. I talk to people all the time who are either going through the death of a loved one and they're looking for all kinds of documents that don't exist, or they have some information but they don't have all of it. We hear in the news all the time about celebrities, Aretha Franklin, what they found her a wheel in the cushion of her sofa. We hear all kinds of things.
Just miss. Yeah.
We hear a whole bunch of mess, not to mention families falling apart. That's one of the bigger ones.
Yeah.
because things have not been left in place and in order. I will
Right.
tell you, one of the biggest gifts my mother gave my brother and I, upon her departure or her transition, was that her business was in order.
Was in order. Yes.
But I
And I
will
mean
tell you
that's how it is with like my son. If I drop dead right now, my son doesn't have to do anything but get his
anything.
stuff. Because
Yes.
everything that I have, once I take my last breath, belongs to him. He doesn't have to go to probate court. He doesn't have to do anything. I had a lady to call me and she wanted to do a deed. She wanted to do a will, was what she wanted to do. And I told her, I said, well, what do you have? And she told me what she had. She told me she had some money and she had some jewelry. So what we did was we put the jewelry in a holistic will, like she did in her handwriting, said who she wanted the jewelry to go to. And I said, now the land, I said, all we got to do is do some deeds. I said, we'll give you a life estate in the land with remainder to the child that you want to have it. And so after she passed away, her son called me and he said, my mama said that you did her will, blah, blah, blah. I said, no, I did her one better. I did her some deeds. I said, so y'all already own the property. I said, all you have to do is go over there and get it changed over into your name down at the county. So it's just like you people are getting bad advice because when lawyers prepare wills instead of deeds, then you're going to have to come back to them at some point for them to probate that will. And it's going to cost money because you got to go over the chancery court and do that. And it costs thousands and thousands of dollars.
Right. So we're going to get into this conversation because again, you're right in the center of where we need to go tonight. And again, even sometimes when business is in order, there are things you still have to do. I mean, we still had to go through paperwork. There's still things we had to do.
Right.
And so what makes it better is when you got it in order. So all I got to do is pick up the phone and call the attorney, or you have to pick, there are certain things that you can be ahead of the game.
Right.
We had a situation where one of the policies was in New Orleans and it got washed away in Katrina. I mean, all kinds of stuff, but thankful, we were able to work that out. So let's get into it. Tell us why do we even need estate planning? Like, do we really talk to us about it? Why
we definitely need estate planning because when people pass away, for one thing, you gonna have your kids down to the courthouse acting a fool because the mama wanted this, mama wanted that, when mama can just tell you what she wants while she's yet alive. It's like, don't have your kids wondering what you wanted them to do when you can just say what you want them to do. We have so many issues. I have people coming into justice court. They're trying to, they want to press trespassing charges because my brother's on my part of the property. I said, well, let me see the deed. They show me the deed, and the deed's still in their mom and daddy name. It's like, y'all ain't got no part of the property. This is their property. If your brother comes sit on your couch, you can't do nothing about it because all of y'all own the entirety of this property until y'all get it partitioned. So what you have to do is when you're alive, when your parents are alive, it's a really difficult decision to have. I mean, a difficult discussion to have, but it's an important discussion to have because if you don't do it while your parents are living, when your parents are deceased, it's going to be a whole bunch of drama because nobody's going to want to spend the money to go to probate court to get everything partitioned because it does cost money to open the estate, to have the heirs determined, to run the notice to creditors in the newspaper. It just takes a lot. And then you open the estate up to creditors, and it's just like creditors who you may not have even known that your parents had. They're going to come in. They're going to be trying to get their little piece of the pie. But if you go ahead and do it before you die, then that property is going to transfer to the person that you want to have it without having to go into chancery court and open an estate. Because when you go and open an estate, you file a petition to open an estate and determination of heirship. But before you can move forward to distribute the assets, you have to do a notice to creditors in the newspaper, and it has to run 3 consecutive weeks. And then after those 3 consecutive weeks, when it runs, those creditors have 90 days from that last time it ran to come in and put a claim on that estate. So if your parents got old debts that you don't know anything about, you can end up having to pay those debts before you can collect any of the proceeds of the estate.
Wow. I mean, that information is so valuable. And again, I hope people are taking notes. Don't rely on, I'm just listening. Take notes so you will have, at the end of this session, you should be able to have a plan of action in place. This is what I'm doing
Right.
tomorrow. This is what we're going to at least try to
Right.
give you tonight. A few things where you can just tomorrow morning, tonight, because you
Right.
may not wake up tomorrow. So,
And it's not like you're ready to die. It's just you're prepared
you're
to die.
preparing. And
That's preparation is what you need.
so do you find that many times people, you said something about some people are not, don't talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
The fear of talking about plan of life. I want us to get rid of that fear part because
Right.
it makes us ignorant in
It
essence.
does. It
And
does.
so I
And
just want to encourage people to you all of us are gonna die. It's
that's
going
one
to
thing.
happen.
Look, just as sure as you were born, you're
It's the
going to
one thing
die.
we do
It's just
have
like
in
that's a
common.
certain appointment that
That's
everybody
right.
has to keep. And so you
That's right.
really have to be ready for that. And so many people they're not. And and some people don't have a lot in their estate. And I
Right.
feel bad as a lawyer charging people to probate an estate when somebody has just a house. And then the
Mhm.
house is only worth $30,000, and then I'm having to charge them $7,500 to probate an estate with a house. They have to give me the value of the house almost to probate the estate, and
Yeah.
so it's just chancery estate practice is very, very expensive legal fees. Those are some of the most expensive legal fees that you're ever going to have is estate fees. So if you do things but while you're still living, then you won't have to worry about that. I got my biggest taste of that when my father passed away. My father passed away 3 weeks before I graduated from law school. My mother died 17 months later when I was pregnant with my son. Then a year after my mother died, the house burned. The family home burned. So we had to deal with the insurance company. So I go over to open an estate for my mother so that I can deal with the insurance company. But when I did a title search on the property that we grew up in, my mama's name was nowhere on that property. The house was only in my daddy's name. So what I had to do was I had to probate my daddy's estate, have us named, my mama and the children named as my daddy's heirs at law. And then I had to probate my mother's estate because I could not probate her estate until I had that house passed on to us and my mother. It had to be passed on to my mother and us. And then I could probate my mother's estate, and then we could deal with the insurance company.
Wow.
So it's just like people don't know that, and it's so crazy, and it seems so simple to do something like that for me at this juncture, but back then, it's something that I never even really thought about.
Mm-hmm.
And people just don't think about it.
Right.
People don't think about the fact. This is another thing. A lot of times when married couples have property together, they will have it as joint tenants with rights of survivorship. So that's a good thing to do for most married couples, but for some married couples, it can cause problems because, say for instance, you get married to your second husband. Your children grew up in this family home that you lived in with their daddy, and then their daddy died, and then so y'all got this house. But then you and your second husband decide to redo some stuff on the house and y'all refinance the house. And then when y'all refinance the house, the deed says joint tenants with rights of survivorship. So when if you die before him, the whole house is gonna go to your husband. You have just disinherited your children from their family home.
Wow.
And a lot of people don't even think about that. They don't think, they don't read the fine print, but there's a huge difference between joint tenants with right of survivorship and tenants in common. So what you would want to do in a situation like that is have the property listed as tenants in common. That way your part will belong to you and it will go to your children. His part will belong to him and go to his children. But if you don't do it, if you do joint tenants, the whole thing is going to go to you or the whole thing is going to go to him, and your children are thereby disinherited.
Oh, wow. So I generally wait to answer questions at the end, but this one fits right here.
Okay.
So someone says, I've heard I should put the house in a trust for my children. Is that unnecessary? My children are adults.
No, if your children are grown, you don't need no trust. Trusts are for babies. That's for people who can't take care of themselves. But if your children are grown, you don't need to put it in a trust. You can either do, if you want to do a life estate for yourself with remainder to your children. Now, this is the caveat. This is the catch with life estates. If you have a life estate with remainder to your children and you refinance your house, your child is going to have to sign off on that refinance because they got a future interest in the property. That's the only catch to that, that you will have you'll have that stipulation that they'll have to sign off on anything that you do to hinder or, what's the word I'm looking for? Anything to encumber the title of the house. Your child, whoever is getting remainder interest in it, is going to have to sign off on it. So,
Okay.
but other than that, there's really no problem with doing it. You could there are different ways you can do it, or you can do, even if you do a joint tenants with right of survivorship with your children, they will still have to sign if you do a refinance because y'all will own it jointly. Like checking accounts, you can have your checking accounts. If you have two people on your checking accounts, it's going to be joint tenants with right of survivorship. My checking accounts are POD to my son, so that means payable on death. He can't get my money now. We're not joint tenants on the account now. He can't touch my money. But if I die, then it's his money. It automatically is POD to him.
So what's the difference between the two in terms of paperwork?
What do you mean?
POD versus joint tenant right of survivalship. Is the process the same
At the bank
at the bank?
for the money, the difference, the huge difference is when you have joint tenants, that means they can get your money right now. That
Right,
means it's
okay.
your money and their money
Yes.
right now.
Yes.
But like with his POD, that's not their money until you die.
Okay.
So when you have joint tenants, it's like you open the account together. That's kind of like basically what you do. But when you have POD, that person doesn't have to come to the bank with you. You can just put POD on your account for
And
them.
so POD, the point of death, for those people that may not know, is, I'm asking, is the form, because I know with joint tenant right of survivorship, you go in and fill out some forms. Is that process the same for POD? Or is it
Well, checking accounts are automatically joint tenants with right of survivorship if
Okay.
it's a joint account.
right?
I mean, that's automatic.
Yeah.
So, so that's how you do that. Just do a joint account. But with
Okay.
POD, you just have to go in and say who you want to designate. You can even do POD to the funeral home if you want to get them your money. If you want to have it go directly to them so that they can pay for your funeral expenses. It's just, you can do it however you want to. You can POD to whoever you want to,
Okay.
and so that you can take care of your final plans.
Yeah. I have a few family members who have been bankers. They're retired now, but some of the horror stories that they have shared with me. Elderly lady didn't want to put anybody on the account because she didn't trust the family. So it sounds like POD is an answer to that. If you're afraid that your family is not going to take care of yourself while you're living, to do POD, then that way that's already set in place.
Right.
That's one of the things
Right.
that you can do. Okay, so let's go back. Because I don't want to assume people know what probate is. Can you give us layman terms of the definition of probate, please?
Okay, so probate just means, and there are other things that go into probate court. Probate court means, you're taking care of assets. Whether you're doing a conservatorship, a guardianship, these are probate type of actions. So probate just means that you're going to be taking care of assets. That's what you're dealing with in probate court, and then you're going to be dealing with things that are going to in estate planning. You're going to be dealing with things that are related to someone who is deceased.
Okay, all right. That
So you will probate. Okay, so people don't understand that. Like, they think you got to have a will in order to probate an estate. You don't. You can probate it's called a testate estate when you do have a will, an intestate estate when you don't have a will. So that means that if you have a testate estate, that means you have enumerated who you want to get what, when you want them to get it, all of that stuff. But if you have an intestate estate, that means that you didn't say who you want to get it. So it's going to go by the laws of intestate succession according to the laws of the state. So that means that, say, for instance, like I said, I only have one heir at law. My son is my only heir at law. So that means if I die today, he gets everything. If I got married, then it will go to my husband and my son in equal shares. If I don't have a husband or a child, then that's when it goes to the next rung, and it goes to my parents and my siblings. And so it goes on from there. But so you have to understand that. I remember when Katherine Jackson was beefing with Michael Jackson's son about something in the estate, and I was like, she could have called me. I would have told her for free. You've been disinherited because he got children. You don't have the rights to
Wow.
nothing. Just sit down somewhere. So so it's just like people don't understand that the existence of certain people disinherits other people.
So here's another question. Can POD on a bank account be split between children, or is it 100%
Yes,
one child? Okay,
yes,
that's
you
what
can
I thought.
split it.
You can split.
You
You
can
can
split it.
actually.
I wouldn't recommend that.
You would not.
Mm-mm.
Okay.
I would not, because the thing about it is, if you gonna POD some money, you can put POD, and I would have a certain amount that's POD to this person, because it's gonna be drama. Some people get real ignorant when you start talking about money after people die, and it's just
Yeah.
you can create problems. But you also have to be wary of that child that you trust to make sure that the other siblings are taken care of. Had a situation in court where a sister came in to evict her brother, and the daddy gave her, he transferred the property to her, because she was going to be a steward over the property for the other siblings. But once he died, she evicted everybody off the property and kept it for herself. So it's just like, you have to be very careful with entrusting that. That's when you might want to talk about doing a trust and putting it in a trust with somebody who is going to distribute everything equally among the siblings, rather than keeping it all for themselves. So when you do a trust, you want to have a fiduciary who does not have a vested interest. You know what I mean? Somebody who does not seek, does not stand to gain anything
From it.
from this estate. Mm-hmm.
So if you're going to do a POD and you have multiple children, you need to be very specific about who gets what.
Mm-hmm.
Which kind of is what we're talking about here, is being sure that you have planned everything out, and
Right.
perhaps not being very clear about, no matter what whether it's jewelry or whether it's the bank
Right.
account. But
Exactly. Like I want this strand of pearls to go to my niece Leslie. I mean, it's just
yes,
like, you have to be that specific, because people just lose their minds. I mean,
yeah,
it's just like, and then, it's like they're dealing with grief on top of that. And then so they're dealing with the grief. And so on top of that, dealing with, estate drama it just adds insult to injury, and it makes it so
yeah,
much worse. So
right,
much worse.
yeah.
When you can just make it easier on them. My funeral program is written out. My
Wow,
son ain't got to do nothing.
he has
Like
to do nothing.
nothing, because I don't want him to have to deal with that. It's just
Yeah,
it's too stressful.
yeah,
It's like, I have done that for so many of my friends. I've had to do, I've done their funeral programs for their husbands, for their mothers, just because it was just a lot. When my uncle passed away in October, I did the funeral program for my aunt, and because she has boys, boys don't know how to do nothing. So I just had to, step in and take care of that. So it's
yeah.
like, you you want to have things in place so that people won't have, there won't be so much upheaval.
Okay,
Yeah,
So I know I've heard this question several times, and I wondered myself. And Tanya is asking this: is a handwritten will a legal document
it is.
if it's notarized?
It doesn't even have to be notarized. If it's all in your own handwriting, it doesn't even have to be notarized. It can be holistic. It's in your own handwriting. If somebody contests it, then you have to get a handwriting expert to come in and find something else, like a check that you signed or something like that. And then they'll come in there and, and determine whether or not that's your handwriting. And then the court will determine it to be a good will. Now, this is one thing that cannot be in your handwriting. When you do a deed, when you transfer real property, land, houses, that has to be a notarized document. Typed up notarized document. But I mean, it don't necessarily have to be typed up, but it's kind of hard to do a deed without typing it up, because you got the land description and all that other stuff.
Right.
But it can be written, but it would have to be notarized. It has to be notarized in order for it to be a legal document if you're transferring real property, which
Real
is
property.
land or houses. And
Okay.
so when I was telling you about the siblings, and they were arguing over the land, saying he owned my part of the property, he owned my part of the property. And I was saying that if you want to come sit in your living room, he can come sit in your living room. Because when you transfer land, it says, I hereby transfer this land and all improvements and appurtenances thereunto belonging, which means the land and the houses that sit on it. So that means that anything, any improvements or appurtenances attached to the land belong to the land. So if the land belongs to all of y'all, then the houses on the land belong to all of y'all. So it's just like you have to get your parents to partition that before they before they
Mhm.
pass on.
Before the pass on. Okay, okay.
Mhm.
So as we talk about just planning, because I want to get to a plan for how people can move forward.
Okay.
Um, on the flyer, I mentioned how you need to plan now so you don't have to pay an attorney later,
Mhm.
because that's what will happen.
Right. And
So,
it's real expensive.
and it's expensive. And so
Mhm.
some people believe that you absolutely have to have a will.
Okay.
So, can you talk about the fact that you don't necessarily have to, but so explain that to us, so people can really grasp what it means to either when they leave tonight, they need to go to get a wheel or they need to do X, Y, and Z. If you can just put
Okay.
that out of context for us, please.
Okay. So you can do a will and you can say who you want to get what, and and then but then you'll have to go to court and probate that will and the court will disseminate the assets from there. But you're gonna have to pay a lawyer to go in and probate the estate, and then you open your estate up to creditors. So if to save yourself that, what you do is if all you have is some land, then you go ahead and give yourself a life tenancy with right of survivorship to somebody else in that property, and then when you pass on, it will automatically pass to that person. Once you die, in the interest in that property will vest in the person who you left remainder interest to. Because once you, like I said, once you go to probate court, you're opening your estate up to creditor access, and they can go in and try to attach these liens to your estate, and then your children may have to end up selling your home or selling some of the property in order to pay the creditors they can um, before they can collect the assets on the estates. So, but if you have a whole lot of stuff, like if you have a whole lot of stuff, then that's when I would recommend doing a will. If you just have a lot of property in different states, and you just got vineyards in Maine and all over the world. If you got a lot of stuff, that's when I would recommend having trusts. That's when I would recommend um, having a will. But if you don't have a whole lot of stuff, then you can take care of those things with a couple of documents, a POD, a handwritten will, and some deeds. So it
Okay.
just depends on what's in your estate,
What's
whether or
that?
not you should have a will or not. And like I said, if you don't have a will, that's not the end of the world. You can still have your estate probated. It'll just go by intestate succession, according to state law.
Okay. So just for clarity, if I want to, I want to avoid doing a will. One of
Mhm.
the things I must do is first go to the bank and decide who is POD.
Right.
Okay. If I have land, I have to do joint tenant right of survivalship.
You can
I'm
do
just talking
that,
about
or
if, go
you can
ahead.
do that, or you can do the life tenancy with right of survivorship. With
Okay.
Because like I have life tenancy with remainder to my son.
Okay.
So that means that as long as I'm alive, it belongs to me.
Okay.
And once I die, it belongs to him in his entirety.
And what is the name of that one again?
That's a life estate
Life estate. Okay.
with
Life
remainder. Yeah,
with
with
remainder.
remainder.
Life
Now the joint tenancy means that you both own it at the same
at the
time.
same time. Okay.
Tenants in
Okay.
common means that each of you own half of it.
Okay. Got
And
you.
so when you pass away, your half goes to your heirs and their half goes to their heirs.
Okay. So is there any recommendations? Let's say somebody tonight has decided I'm going to go get this done tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
How do you find the right attorney? I don't know if there are documents online. Where do you start?
If you go to the Mississippi Bar website, they will have different types of what type of lawyers do what type of law. I steer away from estate law because, like I said, it's really, really expensive. I feel bad charging people that much money, but I have to charge people that much money because it's just that much work. So, I steer away from it. I had a case when I was a baby lawyer, and I've been practicing law now for 27 years. But I had a case where the girl and her brother, they had grown up in the house together, but they had different last names. So when the daddy died, he left some assets, and the sister was like, "You ain't my brother. You ain't no kin to me." So she was trying to keep him from collecting his part of the heirship rights, and the judge finally ordered that the body be exhumed to do a DNA test. So by the time they got through exhuming the body, doing a DNA test, she ended up getting less money than she would have gotten if she would just split that money with her brother in the first place. Greed would never get you anywhere. You knew that was your brother. You knew good and well that was your brother. You were just being petty and greedy, petty and greedy, and petty and greedy end up making you get less money than you would have gotten if you would have just.
Wow.
So people get really, really crazy when it comes to estates, and and it's just and then this is another thing that people don't understand. And I love talking about this because people don't handle their business, and I'm just a stickler for handling their business. If I'm a single woman, so if I meet a man and he tells me that he's going through a divorce, I say, well, you call me when you get through going. Because we ain't doing that. We're not doing that, sir. Because you think about Eric Garner, the man that was killed in New York by the police, the bodega worker who was killed by the police. He was choked. Right. And so when he died, they won a lawsuit. I think they got like $47 million. So he was living with his baby mama, but he was still married to another woman. So the baby mama didn't get squat. Now her child got some money that went into an account that she would have to petition the court every time she went in there to get $20. But that money went to his wife and his children. She didn't unless he had a will, unless he had a life insurance policy leaving her something. She didn't get anything because she was not related to him, even though that was who he was in relationship with. And then people are with these people who've been separated for 15, 20 years, and then you want to be looking pitiful when his kids come put you at the house after he died, because that's their house. That's not your house. You don't own any interest in that. So you don't be with people who aren't willing to handle their business and aren't willing to make sure that their estates are not raggedy when they pass on.
Right. Ooh, that's a heavy one right there. Mm-hmm. Wow, I not heard that story. That's
and another one. You cannot bequeath your children. That's a big one. People think that they can bequeath their children. Like I want my children to go with my mama when I die. You can't bequeath your children. If they got a dad and their daddy want them, then they going with their daddy. Yeah. And so you cannot bequeath your children to anybody. And that's why it will behoove you to make sure that your children have a decent relationship with that absent parent, because you don't want them to have to go and live with strangers if something happens to you.
Right. Wow. So
it gets deep. It gets deep with this estate stuff. I mean, really, really deep.
So that just tells me that we need to have way more conversations about it. Someone Shay says, how do you even start the conversation with your loved ones? That's a real question, but you have to start somewhere. You got to start somewhere. Have some popcorn and show this footage is on YouTube.
We're gonna watch a movie. Exactly. We're gonna talk about this. I mean, because it's like, I don't know. And people who, say that they're saved, it's like you shouldn't be afraid of that. Look, this is one thing I said. We were talking about going on trips, and I love traveling. I just got back from California Thursday night at 11 o'clock and had to be on the bench at 8:30 Friday morning. Wow. I like to go. Yeah. And so, people like, oh, you just love to go. You always going. I wish I could go on all those trips. I say, well, come on, go. You can go on some of the trips. She's like, well, I'm not getting on a plane. I'm like, well, why are you not getting on a plane? And she was like, well, I'm scared to fly. I said, why are you scared to fly? I thought you said you know Jesus. If you know Jesus, then you shouldn't be afraid to die. And if you ain't afraid to die, you shouldn't be afraid to fly. So come on, get on this plane and let's go. Like, don't be childish. Don't do that. We all gonna die at some point.
And that's the truth.
That's the truth.
And there you have it, folks.
And there you have it.
Live. So right now you need to live, but go take care of your
Exactly.
business. Go take
Because
care
when
of
you
your
think
business.
about it, if you're flying, what are you afraid of? Because the worst thing that could happen is that you'll die, that the plane will
Right.
crash and you'll die. So it's just like if you say you to die is gain, baby, you don't be worried about that.
Right. Oh, absolutely. 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 All right. So somebody, Tanya asked again, to be clear,
Okay.
the life estate with remainder is not necessary if children are already on the deed.
Right.
So you don't need both.
Right. You don't need both.
Okay.
Right.
Good.
If they're already on the deed, you don't have to give them a remainder in the property, because if they're on the deed as joint tenants, then because you can have it like that. I guess it depends on how many, because people don't usually do joint tenants with a bunch of people.
Right.
Usually when they have a bunch of people, it'll be tenants in common. And so it's like it'll divide it between all of them, at the time of death. It'll be like you own 1/5, I own 1/5. It'll be like split up like that. Usually joint tenants with right of survivorship are divided among just two people.
Right. Right. Okay, so one of the biggest lessons I learned in dealing with one of my family members is the power of attorney, and how it doesn't mean anything once that person takes their last breath.
Once you press a damn pillow, it ain't worth the paper it's written on.
And I know I didn't know that. And I was in the middle of handling some banking stuff and had been in the bank for an hour, and the banker was like, "Oh, wait a minute." And I'm like, you have got to be kidding me.
Yeah, once the person dies, that's it.
Yeah, so all those documents, this is why this conversation is important. This is why you need to get things in place.
Right.
This is why. Because people that don't know that, I'm sure, got caught up in all kinds of things.
Right. And they can get charged with fraud if they do something, and they try to get something over on the bank, before the bank finds out that the person is dead, and then somebody comes in and contests it, then you can end up with a fraud charge against you, because once the person dies, the power of attorney is no good, the guardianship is no good, the conservatorship is no good. None of these things surpass death. None of them. So, and I think the difference between a guardianship and a conservatorship is a guardianship is like over your body. The conservatorship is over your money and over your assets. And so it's like you have to have a court order to get a guardianship. You have to have a court order to get a conservatorship, but you don't have to have a court order to get a power of attorney. You just have to have a notarized document.
Okay. I want to go back to bequeathing your children. I want to go back to that conversation because some people know that their partner, their baby daddy, baby mama, whatever, is not suitable for whatever reason.
Right.
So what are some of the things they can do ahead of time? We know you can't bequeath them, but what are some things they possibly could do?
Help your baby get acquainted with their dad. That's it. Because especially like if you die in a wrongful death lawsuit, that daddy coming to get them babies, honey, because they're gonna have some money. So help your babies get to know their daddy. That's all you can do. Because when you go to court, that chancellor judge is gonna give their child, because the grandparents won't even have standing. It's just like those are his children, and you got to remember that. And I'm gonna tell you something. Another reason why I don't like chancery court, I prefer circuit court. When I ran for judge, I ran for circuit judge because that's, I love criminal work. That's my forte. I love personal injury. I love criminal work. So the chancery stuff is like when somebody comes to me with a criminal case, they're like, "Can you get me out of this mess that I've gotten myself into?" But when they come to me with a chancery case, "Can you restore me to the point of contemplation before I had sex with this fool and made a baby?" No, I cannot. I cannot expunge your baby daddy from your record. You are stuck with him. You have procreated with him in a reckless manner, and you have created a life. And you have to deal with him until that child is grown. And that's it.
Whoa. Well, now there you have it. Oh well.
That's it. You got to deal with it.
Wow. Wow. I mean, that's really serious. I mean,
It
I'm laughing,
is.
but that is a serious situation to be in. So good
Mhm.
people, you need to take this information and run with it.
Oh yeah, definitely.
In some form or fashion. Go ahead and have the kids adopted. I don't know, but
See what I'm saying? Get his parental rights terminated. Now that is a way to deal with it. You can let your significant other adopt the children, and then that will terminate the parental rights of
yeah,
that natural parent. But other than
yeah,
that, that's it.
that's it. And
That's it.
and do you find that to be true across in all states?
Pretty
In all
much.
states, that is
Pretty
true.
much.
Mhm.
Yep. You cannot
Wow.
bequeath children.
Wow. Wow.
Mhm.
Wow. Okay, folks, this is some good information here, and I hope that you all are taking it in. Let's see. Feel free to share your questions now. Let's see. We
Yeah.
have. Um, they're asking if you advise about directives as well.
Healthcare directives. I would have a healthcare directive in place because basically, people think, I don't know why people think that a living will is anything. A living will and a healthcare directive, that's the same thing. And so it's just like, that's just telling what you want to happen if you are in an incapacitated state and you can't make decisions for yourself. Do you want heroic measures to be taken to save your life, or do you want them to let you go on to glory? That's just basically what it is. You want a living will in place. Like, like I said, I only have one heir law. So I don't have to worry about that. My son knows how I feel about it. He knows everything about what I want. Even after I die, he knows how I want my body to be disposed of. And so it's just like, I don't have to worry about that. But when you have 4, 5 kids, it would do you very good to have an advance directive. It would do very good to have a living will so that your children won't be in there. Mama will want me to save her. And then Mama won't want to live like this. And they be in there arguing about what Mama would want when Mama could just say in her advance directive, I don't want to live like this, or use all the heroic measures in the world to save my life.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It just saves a lot of drama. And that is just drama that you have when you have more than one child. And because when you have more than one child, they are just as different as they can be, and they're going to think differently. They're going to have a different attachment. That's why I tell people, like, when people say, like, if you lose somebody, and people say, I hate it when people say, I know just how you feel. No, you don't. You do not know just how I feel, because even if you're my sibling and my mother died, I had a different relationship with my mother than you did. It's
Yeah.
just like we grew up in a different time, in a different era. I was her third child. You were her second child. You don't know just how I feel. You may understand how I feel, but you
Mhm.
don't feel the way that person feels. You don't know how
Yeah.
they feel, because everybody feels differently. Some people might not even care that their parent is dead. It's just like you don't know how they feel. So
Right.
just
That's
when
right.
you tell people that, just say, I understand what you're going through and I'm here for you. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the best way to put that.
Yeah. My thought, and I talk about this in my book. Sometimes just don't, if you don't know what to say, just don't
Just don't
say.
say nothing,
Just don't say
because a lot
anything.
of times people just want you to sit with them. When somebody dies, it's just like, just go sit with them. Just
Yes.
go sit
Yeah.
with them, hand them a glass of wine or some water, or just go sit with them, and
Yeah.
just and
Yeah.
that in quiet, and and then if they want to talk, they'll start talking. Some of them just
Sure.
start rattling off and just start talking. So you
Right.
have to wait for that, but you can't. And don't be telling people, you got to be strong. No, you don't. No, you don't. They got to grieve the way they grieve. And you
Yeah.
cannot tell people how to grieve. People grieve in different ways. People
Yes.
may want to shout, glory, hallelujah, his pain is over, he's not hurting anymore. If they want to grieve that way, if they want to grieve and say, oh Lord, woe is me, Jesus help me, what am I do? Whatever, however they
Yeah.
grieve, you have to give people room to grieve how they grieve.
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
I did a
And
PSA about that on my TikTok. So it's on
okay.
grief. Yeah. Back in
I'm
October,
great.
my uncle died. I did a PSA on
Awesome.
grief. Mhm.
Yeah, and that's needed because I don't know that we grow up
Right.
talking about how when somebody dies, what you do, what you do. I don't know people that actually go through that process with their children
Right.
until something happens.
Mm-hmm.
And so that information is very vital. One of my things is, you know, you don't always have to take fried chicken and pound cake and sodas to people's
Mm-mm.
houses.
Mm-mm.
Sometimes just take them some breakfast food, or,
Take them
or
some breakfast food.
offer to go shopping for them. There are a lot
Right.
of things that can be done. And again, in terms of
Mm-hmm.
saying things to people, sometimes it's just I'm praying for you.
Mm-hmm.
And that could be it.
Right.
That
Exactly.
sometimes it doesn't
Because
have
that
to be a lot.
sometimes it's the best thing you can do.
That's the
To
best
pray
thing.
for
Anyway,
'em.
that's the best
Mm-hmm.
thing anyway. All right. So let's see. We have a few more questions. What does transfer on death mean? I think that's the same thing as POD, is it?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So
Payable on
that's
death.
okay. So, but is it? Yeah, I mean, so if I go to the bank, am I asking for a transfer on death form or power
POD.
POD?
POD.
So
Mm-hmm.
transfer on death, same thing as
Yeah.
POD,
POD. Payable on death.
payable on death. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So that means that that person gets the
Everything
full.
that's in your account. And see, like, okay, so and I have two accounts that are law office accounts. So my son is not a lawyer. So I had to POD those accounts to another lawyer who can, make sure that all the bills are paid from the law office, and then give that money to my son. So because
No.
I cannot, you can't fee share with a non-attorney. So that
Okay.
means that the money has to go to another attorney, and then he can transfer it to my son after everything is cleared.
So what about if you have the old people say, what if you have a box at the bank? What about the contents
A safe
of the
deposit box.
safe deposit box?
Yeah, I mean you can do that in a holistic will, or you can say I want all the contents of my say deposit box to go to so and so, or you can specify if there are individual things in there, stocks, bonds. You can just say where you want them to go. Like I said, the only thing that can't be in a holistic will is land transfer.
With land transfer. Got it.
Mhm.
Okay. All right. Somebody says, what about step parents?
What about 'em?
I don't know. Let's see. So I guess I mean my thought was if you have, and you might have covered this, if you have a step parent, that you have a child, a parent that's biological, a parent that is not.
Okay.
How does that work when you're trying to write out a will? Because I know earlier you said that you can cut yourself out of the will if you don't have things written out correctly. So
Right.
review that
Right.
again, please.
So the thing about it is, like, the step parent, once that other parent dies, the
Mhm.
step parent is no longer related to that child. I had a situation where I represented a young lady, and the father and his wife had custody of the child. But when he died, the stepmother thought that she was going to be able to keep the kids, and it was just like no, you can't keep the kids. And so she had gone to the school, and the school had transferred everything, and took the mother off of the pickup list, and all this and all that. And I called the school attorney, and I told him, I said, unless you want Lamar County Schools named in this lawsuit I'm about to file, you're gonna need them to have they need to have them to reverse that. And so they reversed that. And then but the judge was like, you have no standing, you're no longer related to these children. Once your husband died, you're no longer related to these children. And so that she gave children to their mother. I mean, it's just like that's what people don't understand. So that means that if the step parent dies, the step kids don't get anything unless there's a will that says, I want my step kids to have this, 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 and this. Because intestate succession does not include steps.
Wow.
So intestate succession is a biological relatives or
Relative.
adopted. You got to
Art.
be adopted or biological.
Okay. 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 Awesome.
Because and a
Um,
lot of people don't know the difference between adoption. Like some people, then you'll get guardianship to somebody. A guardianship is not the same as adoption. Guardianship is when you let somebody oversee the care of somebody. Okay. Conservatorship is when you let somebody oversee somebody's assets. Adoption is when you terminate the parental rights of one person and replace those parental rights with another person, put another person into place. As a matter of fact, it goes so deep that once the adoption is final, it goes to the Bureau of Vital Statistics in Jackson, and a new birth certificate is issued, naming whoever adopted that child as that natural parent. So that person is taken completely out of the picture, the person whose parental rights were terminated. And there are two ways that can happen. Either a person can voluntarily relinquish their parental rights, or they can have them terminated by a court of law upon proof of, their unfitness.
Okay. Someone says, is this the same in every state? I would assume this is probably no.
Some of it is multi-state. Okay. A lot of things, like, and then there'll be subtle nuances sometimes in other states. Like Louisiana is different from everybody because Louisiana is still on French code, the Napoleonic French code. So you notice that Louisiana is the only state that doesn't have counties; it has parishes. So it's just like it's just different in Louisiana and in some of the other like Commonwealth states up in Northeast. Some of them have different rules. So it's just like, but some of the southern states, a lot of the southern states are going to be along, like Alabama, Georgia, Mississippi. They're going to be close to the same laws. Like, for instance, there's still some common law marriage states in the United States. And, Mississippi hasn't had common law, because people will say that in a minute. That's my common law. Not in Mississippi. Common law marriage ended in Mississippi in 1956. So, people don't understand. You got to have some paperwork. You got to have some documentation. You got to do what those people did this morning. Come over there to the court and say, I married 4 couples this morning. I come over there and make it legal, make it official. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So if you're not in the state of Mississippi, matter of fact, we have people on here from North Carolina, Mississippi, Maryland, DC. So it's always good to check your local courthouse for these laws to be sure
definitely
that you know what the answers are.
Definitely. But intestate succession and the majority of the things, not being able to bequeath children, a lot of that is going to be pretty much universal
across the board. So somebody says, what do you do when you have stocks? So let's say we talked about what you do with land. So what do you do with stocks? Is that part of that will?
Yeah, you can transfer that in a will. Your stocks, your bonds, your intellectual property. Like if you own, like you got a book, your intellectual property, you can transfer the rights to that in a will. You just say who you want to get the rights. And but you want to make sure that you cover everything that you have. I have songs that I've written, so I got to make sure my intellectual property rights are covered. One of my songs might blow up after I die, and I want to make sure that my son, gets rights. So
so you write that you write that as part of the will.
Yes, you can write that as part of the will.
And the same thing with the stocks. Well, let me ask you this, because sometimes people have stock accounts.
You can have beneficiaries on your stocks.
That's what I was. Yeah. That's what I thought.
It's kind of like a life insurance policy. You can have a beneficiary.
Yeah. So the wisest thing, if you have stock, is to go ahead and list a beneficiary.
Right. And so it's like you can have, like on my life insurance policy, it has my son is my beneficiary, but I have a secondary beneficiary as my estate. So if something happens and my son predeceases me for some reason, and that means that the money the money that's in my life insurance policy will go to my estate. So it'll go to my brothers and sisters. And so, that way I won't have to be worried about trying to see who get what. I'll let, they can just do whatever they want to do with it. I'm gonna be dead. I don't care. So, I don't even care. So, that's a good way to do that. If you don't know what you want to do, if your children can't take your assets, you can just leave it to your estate. And then that way, whoever's left can go and probate and get it out of the estate.
Okay, just so I'm clear. So if you have stocks, whatever, listing whoever you want it to go to, but also having a second person, or in this case, your estate as
right.
Okay, that's
right. You can have your estate, or you can have a second person. You can have a line. You can have a succession line saying who's gonna get what. You like if he can't take it, then she can have it. Then she can have it. Then she can have it. or you can just have it if he can't take it, then it goes to my estate and it can be split up among the people who are left.
And that's probably wise to do because
Mm-hmm.
you never know. We anticipate that we're going to live longer, but that's just not
You just
necessarily.
don't know. I mean, you know, and I told my son, I said, you better hope that I have a massive heart attack or that my plane fall out the sky. I said, because if the Lord gives me any notice that I'm going to die, I'm spending I'm cashing out my retirement. I'm going to swallow my last dime. All you going to get is that life insurance policy. That's all you get. That's all you going to get. I said, you better hope the Lord don't give me no notice that I'm leaving here. I'm going to Jamaica smoke weed till I die. You ain't going to have nothing left. You have nothing left.
Oh my goodness. Well,
All you gonna get is that life insurance. All you gonna get is that life insurance policy because I can't spend that. I can't spend it. That's the only reason I ain't gonna spend that.
I love it.
And you know, he always said, "Oh my God, Mama, you always doing the most." Whatever.
Gwen Mason said, "Every cent, go spend every cent of it."
Every cent, like swallow your last dime. Like this was also like when I go to judicial training, it's so funny because I don't gamble. So, but when I go to judicial training, the only places in the state of Mississippi that are big enough to hold all the judges are casinos. So we always have our conferences at the Bon Rivage, the IP, at the Golden Moon, Silver Star. And so I'm telling you, those 9,000-year-old people in there, and they're gonna kill us all because they in there with oxygen tanks and smoking a cigarette with an oxygen tank. I'm like, you're gonna blow us all up. We're gonna all die in this casino. But they're gonna swallow their last dime. They ain't leaving their kids nothing.
Not a dime.
Not a dime.
Not a dime. Wow. Well, Gay, this has been an enjoyable conversation. I hope that it has eased people's fears and doubts and whatever those angst are. And I hope that they can go. I hope this will help them to go and have the conversations.
Yeah, the conversation. That's the first step.
Have the conversation. Have the conversation.
It's hard.
Go start writing on a piece of paper tonight. That's some stuff that I'm gonna write down tonight that I think I've not covered. I'm writing it down tonight, because you just don't know. And so just being prepared. And that's what this is all about, is
preparation. It's not about being ready to die. It's about being prepared to die. And people I think that's what people don't get. They think that, I'm preparing, I'm doom and gloom in my life. I'm writing my life away. No, you're not doing that. You're just dealing with the inevitable. Because death is inevitable. There's something that you cannot avoid.
Yes. So we only have a few more minutes. So I'm going to let you have the floor, and I'm going to share. Someone wants you to share the book title, and while you're doing that, I'll show the contact information. So whatever your last parting words are.
Okay, because I'm looking at some notes that I have, and because I'm trying to make sure that I didn't leave anything out. But I basically just, want y'all to remember, just figure out what's in your estate, because when you want to know what's in there, because it's cheaper to do it while you're alive. And it's, a deed is about $500 and POD is free at the bank. But when you get ready to go and do an estate over at Chancery Court, you can end up spending up $10,000 on an estate, and you'll just end up having creating a lot of problems for you. Let's see. I'm telling you, and make sure that you handle your business. If you separate from your spouse, make it official. Go ahead and make sure that divorce is final, because if you fall in love with somebody else, you can create a real bad situation for yourself. I was in court when I was a baby lawyer, and I think I was 28, and there was a couple in court trying to get a divorce. And I knew the couple because they lived across the street from me when I was a little girl. And they had been separated since I was 5. So they had done the paperwork wrong. And the judge was telling them that they had done the paperwork wrong. And so I said, Your Honor, may I approach? And I went to the bench and I said, I'll fix it. And he was like, well, y'all go with Miss Payton and she'll tell you how much she's going to charge. I said, I'm not going to charge them anything. I said, they've been separated since I was 5. I said, if don't nobody else in this courtroom need a divorce, they need one. I said, I'm going to fix it. I'm going to fix it for free. So you just have to make sure that you handle your business, because you can really you can really mess yourself up. You can mess your children up, and you can mess up the person that you love. Um, oh yeah, okay. So when you have brothers and sisters, when you have to open an estate, if you can't, you're gonna have to get them. They're gonna sign joinders and waivers saying that you can go ahead and process the estate without them being notified of every little thing. So they'll just have to sign a joinder and a waiver at the beginning of the estate being open, so that if you got a whole bunch of siblings, you don't have to have all of them there all the time, as long as they sign a joinder and a waiver to let you proceed without them. There are some debts that you cannot escape. You cannot escape your mortgage. You cannot escape car note unless you have credit life on your house, or credit life on your car. You cannot escape those debts. So whoever gets that property is going to have to pay that mortgage or pay that car note in order to keep that asset. It's not automatically paid for when you're dead. So make sure that if you're older and you want to put credit life on your house and on your car, you can do that. Also, this is something huge that people don't think about. Your parents may be over 65, and so they may be tax exempt. But when they die and the property transfers to you, and you 40, you're not tax exempt. So you got to pay taxes on that property from that point on, because if you don't pay it, then somebody from Meridian, one of these companies from out of town, they're going to go and redeem those taxes for 3 years. And once they redeem those taxes for 3 years, because you ain't paid them in 3 years, because you thought you didn't have to pay them because your mama didn't have to pay it because she was over 65, they're going to redeem those deeds, those taxes for 3 years. They're going to go and get a chance record deed, and they're going to own your property, and then they're going to come evict you. Does that make sense? Do you understand what I just said?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
you think about it. Your parents are tax exempt because they're elderly, right?
Right.
But once that property transfers to you, you're not elderly, so you got to pay taxes. And there are companies that are like playing double dutch. They're watching properties to see who's not paying their taxes, and if they redeem that property those property taxes 3 years in a row, they own that property, because they're going to get a chance record deed saying that they own that property, and then they're going to come over to justice court with me, and they're going to file an eviction action against you. And I ain't going to have no choice but to put you out, because they're going to have a deed saying that they own the property.
Yeah. And folks, that is true in Mississippi. I don't know what other states that's true, but I've been a witness to something like that happening. So take care of your stuff.
Take care
tonight,
of it.
Listen, you need to call your parents tonight. If you have parents, you need to call them tonight and say, listen, help us to not have to go through probate and pay thousands, hundreds of dollars when we can get everything straight now.
Exactly.
You have to have those conversations.
Right.
It really will. It's going to be hard enough because you're going to be grieving.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So do an inventory. Have them to do an inventory of what they have, and then go from there. And it'll make it so much easier.
So much
because it'll be done, and you won't have to think about it anymore. Like, I don't have to think about it anymore. It's done. And so if I die, it's done.
So here's my last question. When the property has been passed down to the children, they're both on the deed. So then how do the siblings now handle, their point of death? So what needs to happen then?
If they both own the property, if the property is left to them together, they're going to have to get their property partitioned to determine who owns what part. Like, they're going to have to get a surveyor to come out and partition the property and say, like, you own this half and you own this half. Because otherwise, if it's left to both of them, then they'll both own the entire thing, which is a disaster waiting to happen. So you don't want that. You want to make sure that they get the property partitioned to make sure they know who owns what.
Okay, so but in terms of if their names are on the deed for, let's just say, one property. So if one dies, does it automatically goes to the other, right?
It depends.
Okay.
If it's left to them as joint tenants with right of survivorship, then yes. If it's left to them as tenants in common, then the heirs of each sibling will get theirs when they die.
And so probably the wise thing to do then would be in their personal wills is that they identify
Right, who they want to get,
who they
what happened, what when they die. Yeah, they
okay.
need to identify that. And I mean, it's just like I said, everything is done for me. I have text message and emailed my funeral program. People ain't nobody gonna be standing up over my body line. I already put who can talk at my program. I done told the mayor, don't be reading no proclamations at my funeral. Just list the proclamations on because it's gonna be a bunch of Mama Delta.
Uh-oh. All right, I think we lost her. Oh no, it was getting so good. So hopefully she'll pop back in. So again, folks, thank you so much for tuning in. I hope that you have
I'm
gleaned
going to
from
be
this.
cremated.
All right. Oh,
Nobody's
we
gonna be
lost
looking
you.
at.
We
Oh,
lost you.
you lost
So
me.
back,
I'm done. Okay.
yeah, you back now. You back up. So
Okay.
back up just a little bit.
Oh, I was just saying that I have a list of people who can speak at my funeral.
Okay, she can stop at that funeral program. Gay, can you hear us? All right. Okay. All right. She may pop back in. But again, thank you all so much for joining us tonight. I don't know about you, but I learned some things and I thought I knew quite a bit. But it's been a very good conversation. Again, get your family together. Have them uh to meet at your house, get some popcorn and play this broadcast for them. It's on Facebook and it's on YouTube and maybe this conversation can inspire people to get their things together. Write it down. She said, get a checklist, and then go from there. So I hope that you all will take the time to do what you need to do so that you can better navigate your life. It will be helpful. It will be helpful to those that you are will leave behind. Again, call your parents. I know some parents, some friends whose parents just haven't done anything. They don't even know what their wishes are. Start talking to your friends. So sometimes if your family can't handle the conversation, tell your friends what your wishes are so somebody will know. The whole idea of writing a program out, I mean, I think that's a great idea. I think that's a great idea. You know what you want said. Even if you do a skeleton, or just write down what you do or what you don't want. I think those things are very important. um, Gay is an attorney and a judge in Mississippi. Most of this information is across the states. Some is not. So I encourage those people that are not in the state of Mississippi to check your local government to see what some of the laws are, so that you are well aware of what the possibilities are. Um, Gay also has she has recorded some music. I was gonna play it, but I think for some reason it's not cooperating. But you may go on Spotify and check out her music. You may go on her website and look for her book. I think her book is posted on the website, and then all of her social media handles are at Gail Polk Payton. So at Gail Polk Payton, and she's on TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook. So you can, and then she has some videos where she talks about estate planning on those personal pages. So feel free to jump in and look at those things. Look, send it to, share it with that family member that you're having a hard time getting to discuss the end of life. So just be sure that you are doing your part and prepared. Okay, she's back. Okay,
My
okay.
internet went down. We got a storm in Mississippi.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Okay, let's
Yeah.
let's wrap it up then. So I don't want you to.
Yes. So I was just telling y'all to make sure you have everything spelled out so people won't have to wonder what you wanted. Not even on your funeral program. You want them to know who you want to speak, who you want to say something, how you want your remains disposed of. You know, I want to be cremated because I don't want people in my funeral taking pictures of me like they was doing Whitney Houston. We ain't doing that. So, it's just like I've already made plans for for all of that. And so just make sure you make your wishes known. Let people know what you want to happen after you're gone, because once you're gone, nobody's going to know what you want anymore, because you can't want nothing no more because you're dead. It's
Right.
just as simple as that.
Right. Absolutely. Can you tell us the title of that book again?
Oh, yes. It's called This Has Been a Public Service Announcement. I had a radio show for 5 years called Gays PSA. And so when I do I do PSAs on my TikTok called Gays PSA, and I do free legal advice Friday. So I give free legal advice on Friday. Some of it comes from this book, some of it just comes off the top of my head because I see somebody do something. Like when last week when school was out, I did one about knowing where your kids are because school is out. You need to know where your kids are all day, every second of every day. So because people need to understand your children can get into so much stuff. I mean, I just see too much on my job. It just breaks my heart sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, all right. Well, thank you so much, Gay, for
Absolutely.
engaging us in this very needed conversation. I mean, people are
Mhm.
saying great interview. You tell it like it is. I mean, the comments are very positive. Awesome
Yeah,
information. Thank you.
yeah.
And again, I thank you for spending a moment of your time with Life with Val
Course.
D. And I certainly hope that each one of you will seek out help if you need help, or just get started by making a checklist,
Definitely.
writing out something so that you can get things in order for yourself.
That's right.
Here, just a few announcements before we go. We have another show coming up in a few weeks about finances. Some of you don't have yours in order, and some of you do. And so we're going to talk about that. And we have a specialist coming in to discuss that. You may also feel free to reach out to any of our previous guests. And again, Gay's information is on the screen. So feel free to reach out to her if you want her to come
Definitely.
sing.
Oh,
Alicia.
and I do have 3 songs on Spotify. You can download my music on Spotify or iTunes. 3 songs: Real Man, Anniversary, and God Gives Me. God Gives Me is a song that's really, really near to my heart that I wrote a couple of years after my mom passed away. And
Mm,
it's based on Philippians 4:7, and it talks about the things that God gives us to get through the difficulties in life. It's very inspirational. I love it. I love that
yes,
song.
a nice song. I did listen to it.
Oh,
I'm
good.
sorry. I'm sorry I can't play it. I don't know why it's not allowing me to play it, but
It's okay.
I am so grateful. So, audience, please stay tuned for the next. In 2 weeks, there'll be another show, and I think you are going to have an incredible time listening to our next presenter, just like you did tonight. Oh boy, Gay, you brought it to us, and we are so thankful for how you have presented and given us this valuable information. And again, I do not
Absolutely.
take it for granted that you have spent your time with us. Again, audience, thank you for spending a moment of your life with Val D. Good night.
Good night.